think, Chene, it would be extraordinary for you to give us your own personal story as to who you are and why I played that video clip first.
Sure. First, I want to say hello to everyone. Welcome. If you're new, if I haven't met you before, I'm really glad to meet you and glad you're here. So that person that Irene was specifically talking about that they helped with $1,500, that was me. I have about 25 minutes to tell you like my life, right? So I've tried to shrink it down and do a 3 to 5 minute, never works. So 25 should be good. So I think I was about 9 or 10 months old, I was beaten by a man that my mother left me with. I was put in the hospital for 9 weeks as an infant, and released back to my mother. And she told the doctors that I fell off a table, and they gave me back to her. And then I stayed with my mother until I was almost 7 years old. And I can remember things. I can remember being in diapers. I can remember playing with matches and catching my mom on fire while she was asleep in a sleeping bag on the couch. I can remember a lot of trauma, being locked in my bedroom, not being able to get food, climbing up on a counter by myself in the morning to feed myself a can of peaches and a piece of toast with peanut butter on it, and then walk myself to school. When I turned 6 or 7, my mother got arrested again. She'd been arrested many times. And my grandparents actually petitioned for me to be adopted by them while she was in jail. So we did that, and I moved in with my grandparents, who I didn't really know. It was my dad's family. So then, my dad was in and out of prison during that time. So I was in kindergarten and first grade. I went to 2 different schools, and then I went to 2nd grade at another new school. And then in 3rd grade, I went to another school, and where we lived, and I was raised in Burlington, Washington. And I was there from 3rd grade through high school, well, till I was a teenager anyway. And during that time, my grandparents, they gave me everything I needed. We were upper middle class. There's nothing I didn't have except for communication. Being my grandparents, they're older generation. They didn't talk about my mother and father. They didn't talk about feelings. They didn't, validate anything for me. And sorry about the background noise. I am in my office. But there's no door, by the way. Let's see. So during that time, I went through the DARE program. I was the top DARE graduate. I got to meet the sheriff. I got the bear, all this stuff. I did know that my dad was a drug addict and my mother as well, and an alcoholic, because my grandparents surely talked about that, but they didn't talk about healing, nothing healthy about that. It was always, you don't want to be like them, and you're just going to be like them. If I was acting out, you're acting just like them or whatever, and all negative thoughts, right? And also, not to mention, they were very religious. I was raised Southern Baptist, so I was in church 3 days a week. I already knew I was going to hell. My parents were going to go to hell, so that played a huge part in my psyche. At the age of 15, my grandfather dropped me off at my dad's. My dad had been, 3 or 4 times in and out of prison. He lived in Issaquah, and Burlington to Issaquah, I don't know how many miles it is, but it's pretty far away. And he dropped me off with a bag of clothes and pretty much wrote me off. And my grandma was dying of cancer at that time. And my dad, being a drug addict and also in shock, now he has his teenage daughter living with him in this tiny little camper trailer. He didn't really know what to do with me, right? So I caught him doing drugs, so he did drugs with me. He caught me drinking, so he made me drink more. Wow. It was just, he had no idea what to do. So that eventually turned into, we finally moved back, and yet I was homeless, 15, 16 years old, homeless, couch surfing with friends, trying to figure out how I'm going to get back in school and get back to at least some of the things that brought me joy, which was sports. I played every sport. I excelled at sports, actually, and I did really well in school when I was in school. Let's see. So then I was moved around again my junior year of high school. I was living with an aunt. She found cannabis pot in my room, so she kicked me out and told me I could go live with this other aunt that I didn't even know I had, who ironically smoked pot. So I could go there and I could get high and I could go to school and it would be fine, right? So that's what I did. And then one day I came home from school and the whole house was empty. Well, I didn't know it, but this aunt was wanted in 12 states by the FBI for welfare fraud and had abandoned me and her own daughter, took off with all her animals. She had horses and everything and just left the state. And so there I was again, now 17 years old, 3 months prior to my graduating high school, homeless again, still using drugs, drinking, self-medicating, whatever I could do. Eventually, about a year later, maybe less than a year, I got pregnant. So then I got pregnant and I was not even 18 yet. And my son's dad and we grew cannabis to support our lifestyle. We drove around. There was never a time when we had less than $10,000 cash in our car or pounds of marijuana. And so that was what we did. But because of there was some positivity that had come out of what my grandparents taught me, I had a bunch of guilt, right? Like, I know that I'm not supposed to be living like this with this child on the way, but I don't know really how to get out of it. I mean, even my OBGYN knew that I smoked pot and that was our lifestyle, but she didn't say anything. Nobody sent me to get any services the whole time, right? So there's like multiple times in this journey where people could have stepped in. They could have taken me by my hand and said, I know you don't know the answers and I know you're really afraid right now, but we're going to help you, and that's key for where I'm at now.
So what you mean, slow down for a second, Chene. What you mean is, had somebody compassionately intercepted you and looked at you and said, you know what, you don't know how to negotiate this world. You don't even know how to navigate it all. Can we help you and help you get back on a path that's productive? And there was nothing like that.
No, not at all. It was as if, looking back, it was like nobody wanted to get involved.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Typical.
I mean, that's our culture. Like, nobody wants to get involved in other people's family business, right? And so that's what happened. And my son's dad, and so then eventually, obviously because of the cannabis, we started getting in trouble with the law. And eventually I started using other drugs because I was self-medicating and cannabis wasn't doing it. And you meet all kinds of people in the same kind of situations and they're doing other drugs. And so I ended up doing that. And at the age, my son, let's back up a little. My son, when he was born, here's this little human that I loved so much, but I knew from my own experience that I did not want him to experience anything like what I had from the age of birth to 6 years old that I went through, like with my mother. And so I don't know how this happened. It's a divine intervention or whatever, but my family stepped in and I signed adoption papers for my son to be adopted by my family. And so they did that, and that gave me it gave my addiction a free pass. Like, you might as well just self-destruct. So I completely was addicted to cocaine, and I was a dirty, rotten junkie. I was, stereotypical IV drug user. And I would rob, steal, lie, whatever to get what I needed. And that was about, let's see, from the age of 21 until I was 24. I was on self-destruct mode. I overdosed multiple times. I wasn't allowed in people's homes when I was selling them drugs because they didn't want me to overdose in their house. I ended up pregnant again, and I didn't know I was pregnant because I didn't have a period when I was using. So it was about 5 months in when I found out, okay, you're really pregnant. And I didn't know how to stop. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to die. And I really didn't care about the baby at the time either. I didn't care about anything except for either being high or dying. And so luckily I had my son in the hospital and He was pretty much okay when he was born, all the fingers and toes, mentally, all his little things checked off, but he has mild cerebral palsy. So he's had about a dozen surgeries on his Achilles tendon because he was born with one of his feet was like tippy toe and then on his right side, and his right hand muscles don't work correctly. He's 17 years old now. And actually, it's been 17 years since the last time I was arrested. I got arrested a month after he was born for the very last time. And I was sent to prison finally. I had been offered drug court, but I paid for a lawyer. So I got out of drug court because they, if you pay a lawyer, you can get out of anything. And that's what happened to me. I paid a lawyer and they got me out of drug court. I did 90 days for a 3-year prison charge. And I was like, oh, if I have money, I can just keep paying my way out of all this stuff. And so, in 2005, I was sentenced to 60 months in prison, and it was accumulation of multiple charges, had to do with drugs and stealing and, all those things that get wrapped up in there. And part of me was relieved. Like I just had that big sigh. That's kind of what I did in the courtroom when I had to do my DNA swab. It was like this big sigh, like finally I'm done maybe, but I still had a lot of anger. And when I got to prison, I was in fights a lot. I spent a lot of time in segregation. One time I beat up this girl so badly that her kid was afraid to visit her because he didn't recognize her face. And that moment when I was told that, it was this aha moment, like, you haven't been on drugs. You have everything you could possibly, basic needs met, right? So there's something going on and you need help. And that was the first time I ever recognized that it's my responsibility to be accountable. So I signed up to get my GED while I was in prison. I knew there was a behavior modification program called Therapeutic Community that you have to be sentenced to. It's not typically a voluntary program. So I actually fought to get myself into that program. I had to lie on a mental health evaluation. The first time I did the eval, they said I didn't qualify. They said, you don't have co-occurring disorders, you don't have mental health, you do have substance abuse, you can't be in the program. You can reevaluate in 90 days. And so I thought, well, I'm going to reevaluate and I'm just going to lie. I'm just going to lie. So I did the mental health eval and I just acted crazy so I could get into that program. And I got in and I did the program for twice as long as everyone else. And it was a amazing behavior modification in your face. Like every choice you were making, every word you spoke was raised to your awareness. Like, are the words you're saying true? Are they necessary? Is it kind to yourself and to other people? And it really taught me to take accountability, to respect myself, to respect other people, to learn what I value, that I am valuable. And I just want to mention too that while I was there, I had relationships with women. I'd never had relationships with women. Never. My grandmother who raised me, she worked 12 hours a day. She was gone. And when she was home, she didn't use her words very much. My grandfather ran the house and he was very aggressive, and he was what they call small man syndrome. He was 5'4", Navy retired veteran, and everything was his way or no way. And he was also sexually abusive. So I had no relationships with women to speak of until I was in prison. And I made friends with women who were doing things good. They were making programs to teach each other how valuable they were, teach each other how to respect each other. Yes.
So during this period of time, what years was this as far as on the decade scale? Because I've learned that there were programs that existed before, and a lot of those programs are not here today. So what years was this?
I was at Purdy at WCCW from, I got sent October 2005, and I was there through the end of 2008. And then I went to work release, which was an opportunity that not many people get because there's not a lot of beds for that. But actually, to bring that up, the therapeutic community program ended at Purdy while I was there. They called us all into the office and they just read our names and they said, you're going to go here, you're going to go there. We're not doing it here anymore. they ended it, and it's really unfortunate because I know a lot of women I'm still friends with that I was there with who are still rocking their lives, like being successful women, and I think a lot of it had to do with that. And it also teaches you
Excuse me just for a
solidarity.
second. Sorry about that. I see co-hosts, and then please take care of microphones because
I just did it. Keep going, Chene.
I think learning that solidarity and that you can actually trust another human being with your feelings, that was a big part of it too. Like, how can I trust you? I mean, it took a long time. It took me 18, 24 months to even start trusting the women that were in this program. In addition to my GED, I took some human services classes while I was there. I knew that I survived what I survived so that I could help other people. That was the message that I got. When I did 4 months in isolation, I had nothing to do except write. So I was writing to my higher power, whatever that was. It was my time, my turn to figure out what that was for me. And so I just would write letters, they started off really angry and like, how could this happen? And poor me and all this stuff. But as I progressed and I started accepting what happened, letting go of the past and looking forward, it was just a jumping point for me to continue helping people. So about 6 months short of my release date, I got sent to Bellingham, and that's how I ended up meeting the Whatcom Reentry Coalition at that time, which is now the RCC. And even work release was a great idea. I mean, it was a culture shock because I couldn't run. I used to run every day in prison. I would run twice a day, and that was a mental thing. It was awesome. But when you're in work release, there's more rules. You can't run. If you run, they think you're trying to escape. You get to go to the gym once a week. There's all these things that I had in my regimen that I didn't get anymore. So now here I have to restart, right? And then when I finally did get out, I went to an Oxford house in Bellingham, clean and sober housing. And it was really great. I really enjoyed it because it reminded me of being back in prison, right? With those same kind of like-minded people. And then I moved out with a boyfriend, and that turned out badly. He relapsed, and so then I relapsed. We got in a fight, argument, and I left. But during that time that I was living there, I went to Opportunity Council to get help with a power bill, and I was telling the lady my story, and someone overheard, and his name is Jim Kozad. I love him to death. I wish I could see him, but he kind of piped up and said, "Hey, can you come talk to me when you're done?" And I said, sure. And he invited me to my first meeting for the Whatcom Reentry Coalition, and that's how I met Irene. And she said to me, she said, "How can we help you?" And I was like thinking, first of all, I thought all the help that I got was done when I left prison. Now so it was like a shock to me. Like, I don't know. I really didn't know. And they helped me figure out how to navigate, how to use my story for good, how to use my story to empower myself and other people, how to budget money, how to make money, how to pay bills, how to plan for next week. I only knew how to plan for that day. I get up in the morning, what am I doing today? You know what I mean? So I have a slide to show you real quick. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
This is me.
And I want to say that the reason she's sharing this story with you is really important to understand. This is not about Chene.
No.
This is about the challenges and the mindset that she had as she went from phase to phase to phase, because she's had to overcome multiple different shapes and elements of this mindset to be able to get to the point that she is here, so that she's able to share the story in a way that we can actually move it forward, the whole story and the whole situation forward. So keep going, Chene.
Real quick, I got to get my daughter off the bus soon, but real quick, I just want to, I'll just leave this up for a minute. So these are all my booking photos from the age of 17 until I was 24 years old, in and out of jail. I went to treatment 6 different times, unsuccessfully. I had a mental health counselor. I went to therapy during all these pictures. The Restore Life Center is important to me because this didn't have to happen to me. And these photos, this happens, this life-sucking cycle happens to millions of people in our country. Our services are set up to make people continue to fail because the system gets paid when we fail. Okay, this makes me really emotional looking at these pictures because today I am a licensed, Washington State licensed life insurance agent. I'm a college graduate. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old daughter. After my 2 sons were adopted, I was able to be a mother, like really be involved and be a mom. I'm the PTA president at my daughter's school. I am the store manager at a place that is a nonprofit thrift store that helps cats. It's giving back to the community, you know. I am a Sunday school teacher at my church. This is really important for people to see because me today is not me there $1,500 12 years ago. And here I am, a contributing tax-paying member, I'm paying for these same people, the same person. I'm paying for her to sit in prison and not get any services and not get any help and not get any healing. And I wanted to bring up real quick before I go, we were talking about earlier the housing crisis, right? And people that are sitting in prison, there's no housing. Well, the problem with that is one of the biggest problems with it is that there's no restorative justice happening with each of those inmates. If there was restorative justice happening with those inmates, they would have housing because their family or whoever was involved when they committed a crime would have made amends, forgiven them, and continue to support them and grow together. And so I just really emphasize the Restore Life Center and the hub is going to be a revolutionary across our country, maybe even globally. Having restorative justice doesn't mean just booking this girl who's wrapped in a blanket that weighs less than 100 pounds. It means involving who is she around? Who are the people that she loves? Maybe they aren't around. Maybe they need to be reconnected and have that healing happen. That's why I'm so passionate about the RCC and what we do. I also am a case manager for RCC, and I have a couple clients, one of which who just got her very first job ever in her life, her way. You know, she was a drug dealer her whole life. And because we got to help her and I got to use my story to help her, she's employed now. And she's a mother and she's a daughter and she's sober. So if you're watching this or you get to see it after I'm gone, just reach out, email us, get on our I Change Justice. You know, be a part of the solution. Don't sit in the problem anymore. That's all.
Wow.
I
Chene,
gotta go.
how many more minutes do you have to
I
talk
have
to
to
anybody?
go. I have to go, actually.
You do have to go?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you so
Sorry.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chene. Thank you.